Hey, John here. Imagine if you could tap into the secrets of the virtuoso violinist to supercharge your own technique. So in today's video, I'm going to reveal this powerful practice hack that I borrowed from the top violinists and top pianists in the world. And it's a really helpful thing if you want to get a new lick or a phrase under your fingers and up to speed as quick as possible. We'll be using this lick to demonstrate the practice technique. You have the tab in the description, so let's dive right in. The technique I'm talking about is commonly known as dotted rhythms. It's basically a lopsided rhythm where one note is long and another note is short. Now, for our purposes here, we're going to use an exaggerated version of this where the long notes are as long as you need to have them to be able to relax and reset for the next note. More on that later. And the fast note or the short note will be as quick as you can make it without being sloppy. The biggest mistake I see here is that we get sort of this lazy rhythm, so no lazy rhythms allowed, and I'm going to cover all this in detail coming up. So now I'm going to demonstrate the correct way of doing it and the lazy way of doing it, so you have something to refer to, because this is the number one thing that people seem to get wrong when they practice this technique. We're just going to use this pentatonic scale to do it, so just the A minor pentatonic starting on the 5th fret. I'm just going to alternate pick this, but it doesn't really matter, it's the rhythm that's important. So the correct way of doing this would be to go, we have two versions, we have a long, short, and a short, long. And basically, long note, and then we have a short in between. And then short, so go long, short, long, short, long, short, long. So that's the idea, that's the first version, and I'm going to show you what that should sound like, basically. So here we go. Right, so you can hear that the long note is quite long, and that can be longer or shorter, that depends on how comfortable you are with the phrase. But the most important thing here is that we get that contrast, where we have a really long note, and the short note should be as quick as you can make it without being sloppy. So what you don't want to do is to basically do the more quantized version of a dotted rhythm. Because the dotted rhythm, generally, if you look in the screen here, you can see the notation for it. So you have an 8th note, for example, with a dot, and then you have a 16th note. And what the dot does, it lengthens the first note by half its value. So half the value of an 8th note is a 16th note, so that makes it worth 3 16th notes. So you don't really need to know about that, because we're not going to use that terminology when we practice it, and also we're not going to even do the exact quantized version, like I said, because that would sound more like this. So you hit the first note, and that you let that ring out for 3 16th notes, and then you play the fourth one, would be the equivalent of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And that doesn't really give us the benefits we're looking for here. So again, you don't want it to sound like this. That would be the lazy way of doing this rhythm. So you really want to make sure to get this short and sharp, snappy rhythm. So that's what we're looking for. So the whole benefit of this approach versus just playing normally is that you get to experience the feel of a much faster tempo, but only at every other note, which means you can actually control everything and you don't get the sloppiness. So that's the whole idea behind the technique and why it works. Because I remember reading about this for a long time, and I couldn't really wrap my head around it. It didn't make sense to me. Why would playing uneven rhythms help my technique? But once I actually finally tried it, I was quite amazed at how brilliantly this whole thing worked. So for your own sake, don't just watch this video and then like, yeah, that seems like a good thing. I guess I'll try it a few times and then, didn't really work. Give yourself a chance here, because it's a staple of so many classical musicians' practice routines for a reason. So don't take my word for it, but take Itzhak Perlman's word for it, for example. So I have a clip here where he talks about it, and he's like the super virtuoso of virtuosos.
I practice not only slowly, but I believe in practicing in rhythms, which a lot of people
different patterns, right?
No, just two. I mean, I believe in just two patterns. Dan ta dan ta dan ta dan, da-da, 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 those just two, dotted, and, and that's it, and you do like, I believe you do like 10, 15, 20 times one rhythm, and then you do the opposite one 10, 15 times.
But he's just one of many virtuosos that have talked about applying this technique in their practice and how important it is. Coming up, I'm going to show you how to apply this technique to the lick that I showed you in the beginning. So the reason I made this lick the way that it is one, it sounds pretty cool in my opinion, but also it has a few different techniques. You can see that this practice technique, the dotted rhythms, is very technique agnostic. You basically can apply it to any type of technique you're practicing. So this one starts with this legato line. Then we have alternate picking. And then we have sweep picking going down. So you can see at least 3 different ones. So you have legato, alternate picking, and sweep picking. And you can see how this technique works equally well for all of them. So I'm going to go through this now twice. I'm going to do it with the long short and the short long. And you want to make sure to do the short long as well, because otherwise you will be only covering 50% of the quick transitions. So what I'm going to do here then is just start with long short, and you can hear how that should sound when you practice. So start here. So sometimes when you come to the end of a phrase, it can sound a bit weird because it's like the last note is long before the short one, and it can sound a bit strange, but that's just part of the thing. So don't worry about that, just get through it. So that was the long short. Now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to start with the short note. It sounds like this. So those are the 2 versions that you want to work on. And what you want to keep in mind here is that when you work on any type of lick, the only thing that should change is the rhythm. So whatever pick strokes you use normally, and if it's legato, hammer-ons, pull-offs, sweeps, whatever, all that should stay intact. So the only thing that changes is the rhythm. Super important. Very important that you keep the techniques consistent then, because otherwise you're kind of practicing something else, and then it won't really help you with the specific thing you're working on. Another key point to remember is that the long notes are there for a reason, and the reason is for you to be able to relax and reset between all the fast transitions, and also to evaluate what you just did. So you have to be really focused when you practice this. If I play the pentatonic thing again, the long note then should be long enough so I can make sure that I'm relaxed, like I said, but also that I can evaluate what I just played. So I can be sure that I'm not doing these, anything sloppy in between. Because like anything else, if you just practice this super sloppily and fast for fast sake, that won't help your techniques. You need to focus on the accuracy. And that's why we have these, only every other note is fast, so you can actually play them up to tempo and get that experience, but still be in full control. So don't make that mistake where you just power on and be like, yeah, that's great, I'm just playing whatever. And just like Itzhak said in the video, you need to practice the opposite version as well. And I've made that point previously in the video, but it's very important, because if you miss that, you're basically going to miss half the benefit of this exercise. So don't do that. All right, so here's the practice routine. I like to combine this with the chromatic approach that I talked about before, where basically, if you missed it, you take a phrase that you're working on and then just move it chromatically up and down the fretboard, because then you get the benefit of these shifting distances in the left hand, and also you get the different tensions when you go up and down the fretboard. So you get used to playing all over the instrument. Super important. So I'm just going to demonstrate this on a super short descending pentatonic scale. So you should apply this to anything that you're practicing and that you want to improve. So that's super important as well. So take a part of something that you've been working on. Don't make it too long, but you can be the judge of that. And then apply these principles to the thing you're working on. All right, so basically you take the phrase you have. I have this. I move it down to the first fret, meaning I have the first finger on the first fret. And then I'm going to play it once with long short, like this. And if I'm happy with that, I'm going to move on to short long. If I'm not happy with that, I'm going to do it again until I'm happy with it. So that might entail that you have to make the rhythm a bit more shallow, meaning a bit more lazy at first, so you can get an idea of what it feels like and what it sounds like, because it kind of confuses our brain a bit as well. But then before you move on, you definitely want to get it as sharp as you can get it. All right, so let's say I was happy with that. Then I'm going to turn it around and do the short long. And you'll find that depending on the phrase, you might have a bigger issue with long short or a bigger issue with short long. And that's usually because when you do either rhythm, the hardest part for your technical abilities happen to fall so that the fast transitions are on the hardest parts. But that's a good thing. So don't worry if this feels tricky at first, because when you do this, and especially when it goes wrong a few times, you're going to find that like, oh, you can actually solve these small problems. And it's very specific as well, because you're going to find that, oh, this string change felt really awkward before, but now I've done it a few times and I can actually do it now with the long short, let's say. And now it starts feeling much better. So when you actually apply it and try to play it normally, it will feel way better, and that's where sort of the magic of this approach lies. All right, so the first one is long short. I do short long, and then I just do normal. I just call it normal. Basically, a comfortable tempo, not too fast, nothing too slow, just a normal rep. Then I repeat it one fret up, so I go long short, short long, normal. I move up again. And so on, all the way up, all the way back. And you might expect me to say, and then you change the picking up here. I don't generally do that, because I apply this to musical phrases that I'm learning from solos, or I've composed something, or whatever it might be. So in those cases, I would use whatever picking and hammer-ons and all that stuff the way that it's supposed to be in the actual original, right? So I don't really care about trying to learn a solo and being able to start it on a downstroke and an upstroke. That's more for the mechanical type practice and scale practice. So there's no reason you can't do this on everything you're practicing, but I found that combining this approach with the more long form, slow, repetitive practice, the kind of all over the fretboard, that generally gives the best results. That's what I found for myself and for my students as well. So I would advise you to do the same. So save this technique more for the solos and licks you're trying to learn. And then keep practicing slowly as well. Because again, something that Itzhak mentioned in the clip, he said slow practice is really important. So it's very easy to find a new technique like this and be like, oh, this is going to be used for everything now. And I don't think that's gonna build the most solid technique. So I really do believe that getting that long form, slow practice in is vital to build the base for your technique. And then when you apply this variation, you can really reap the benefits of it. Now, your turn. Give this practice routine a try for at least a week. So you do it once a day per week. Just pick a short phrase that you had issues with. I think that's the coolest way of doing it, because you can really see how much you can improve. And then do it every day for a week using the exact method I showed you. You start down here, do 3 reps all the way up, all the way back, making sure that everything is accurate, no lazy rhythms allowed. And if you do that for a week, I think you'll be super happy that you did. So make sure you let me know in the comments how it went, because I find it really interesting and inspirational to see your progress when you apply the concepts that I'm talking about. And I'm obviously also here to answer questions if something isn't clear or you need some sort of clarification. So give this a try, let me know how it goes, and see you in the next one.